Okay, just bear with me one moment. Okay, Chair, the live stream has started. May I welcome everybody to the meeting this afternoon of the Democratic Services Committee on the 30th of June. May I remind all participants that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be available on the Council's website for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please use the raise hand button, which is in the bottom centre of your screen, or come onto screen to indicate to myself or the chair. When invited to address by the chair, Councillor Johnson, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. Thank you, Chair. That concludes the housekeeping.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Amy, a chroeso.
Thank you very much, Amy, and welcome to the Democratic Services Committee on the 30th of June 2025. I'd like to begin by extending a very warm welcome to Councillor Ball, who is in his first meeting of this committee, and also thank you very much to the Councillor Hamilton. A word of appreciation for his work leading on this committee for the last 3 years. I would also like to make a small change to the agenda. Unfortunately, the minutes from the last meeting were not released with this agenda originally, and so this has been added to the agenda. So this was done in the usual place, which was after the apologies and before the declarations of interest, and I hope this is okay by everybody. And so to crack on with the agenda, are there any apologies for absences this afternoon? Nobody has noted anything, so I will take it that there are no apologies. Item 2 then is the minutes of the meeting held previously. Is anybody willing to accept those minutes? Could I please have somebody to move?
Cynghorydd Hanks and symud.
Councillor Hanks moves. Anybody to second?
Cynghorydd Thomas, diolch.
Thank you very much to Councillor Thompson. And so on to receiving any declarations of interest and the nature of any such interest under the Council's Code of Conduct. Is there anything to declare?
Neb and
Nobody has stated, so I will continue with the report from the head of the Democratic Services Committee, which is James Randall Thomas, and number 3 is the report on health, safety and well-being for councillors. May I please ask the head of Democratic Services to lead on this item and to lead us through it, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of this item, I'm just going to give an overview and largely take the paper as read, but it's just to present to the committee today an update of the just an overview of the Council's approach to health, safety and wellbeing for members. Members may be familiar with this paper in some extent, as it was presented to this committee approximately 3.5 years ago. And it's meant to be an overview of potential support available both internally and externally, but not an exhaustive list. And it's very much signposted into tools and resources. Quite conscious to giving an update, as there has been a range of activity both locally, regionally and nationally that probably has been shared with members sporadically, but not in a single place to signpost members to. So looking to really gain committee endorsement today ahead of sharing this both with wider councillors beyond this committee and also with town and community councillors, albeit with the caveat of not all elements are applicable to town and community councillors. For example, they wouldn't have access to the council's intranet system, for example. In terms of the considerations covered, they are elements which are prevalent to the role of a councillor. So they include elements such as personal safety, social media, which is becoming increasingly prevalent in modern times, And then general health elements such as desktop equipment and eye tests, and then also looking at individual elements of well-being. So that's including both physical and mental health to really signpost wider members to the support available to them in undertaking their role as an elected member. Often, particularly in regards to mental health, councillors are advocated to have a thick skin, but we know, to be candid, that varies amongst that varies. There's no definition in terms of how much a councillor a member should accept in terms of stress, etc. As part of the day-to-day role as being an elected member. So it's very much signposting to tools that if a councillor is feeling under duress, so they really wanted to look at potential additional steps, look at that individual well-being, that there are tools and resources available. So that's the overview of the paper. The paper within itself contains the detail and various elements that is signposted to, and very much looking to open that up to the committee. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, James. The recommendation is that we agree with the advice which is contained within this report and report it through the website and also disseminate it to all the councillors, and that we also share it with the town and community councils, and that we also would consider how we as individuals are able to receive any support that we need at any time. And so can I ask, are there any questions from the committee for James with regards to the matters which are contained within this paper?
Does neb.
Nobody is... Oh, the Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, James, for the report. I'd just like to place on the record, really, with regard to this. I think that it's important that the authority gets the balance right with this. I do note a tendency from some elected members to characterise as abuse what I would, and indeed what I would expect the public to consider to be reasonable criticism and scrutiny of either the council or an individual member's actions and record. I mean, I speak from my own perspective as the board member for Landock. I tend to find my constituents are reasonable people. They view both my actions and record as their local representative, and indeed the authorities' record as a service provider through a reasonable lens. I think that it's right that people have the opportunity and ability to scrutinise and indeed criticise elected members and the authority for its performance. I don't really want to focus too much on specific examples because that's not really relevant to this report, but I would point to the Cosmeston Aqua Park situation, which has been a matter of public interest. I think it's regrettable that legitimate scrutiny and criticism of that decision has instead, in some quarters at least, been presented as abuse. I don't think that that's right. I think that as elected members, we should be able to withstand scrutiny of our decisions and our actions. And ultimately, it's our job to demonstrate to our constituents and to the public that we are acting in their interests and that we're listening to them. And so I would just caution with this that members don't dismiss genuine concerns from the public as abuse when often it's not the case. Obviously, threats of violence, intimidation, and other things are completely wrong. They should be dealt with through the normal procedure by reporting them to the police. But I don't think it's appropriate to characterise scrutiny as abuse. And so I would just urge all members to guard against doing that. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr, Cynghora.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. I don't think that anybody is trying to do so, but Councillor Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think anybody is actually characterising what could be robust debate and discussion as abuse or anything of the sort. But there are certainly elements of intimidation, threats, not violence itself necessarily, but threats of violence and attacks, both of things which are portrayed as fact, but which are not fact. But all of this is within the report. All of this is covered in the report, and the perception of an individual about whether it's an abuse is then scrutinized by somebody else through the procedures, and if it is agreed that is it is abusive, then action be taken. If it's decided that it wasn't abusive, then no action is taken, and presumably the reporting counsellors will be advised accordingly. However, to just characterise what can be lies and misrepresentations and allegations of we've been hearing allegations of corruption and stuff. I mean, Councillor Carroll mentioned the Aqua Park, and there are many rumours flying around on the internet and being directed at some individuals that I'm aware of, where they're talking about corruption and brown envelopes, which are clearly untrue. And that kind of attack on the integrity of an individual also needs to be protected against. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. The purpose of this item today is to ensure that councillors have the tools necessary and the protections set in place so they can be supported, that there are policies to do with their health, their well-being and their safety. And so that this helps councillors who feel like they're under any stress or who are possibly facing any difficulties, that they know where to turn to for support in the future. That is the purpose of this item, to ensure that we as councillors are aware of where we can access this support or this help when we need it. Are there any further comments on this item, or are we happy to move on with the recommendations? Councillor Prothero.
Yes, I just want to support what you've just said, Chair. I think it's really important that we understand that as councillors and the role that we play in supporting our residents, sometimes we have to support people in very difficult and worrying situations, which with the best of us and the most robust of us, that sometimes can affect you because you care. We care, we're councillors, that's where we're doing our job. So having this kind of support is absolutely necessary. So I recommend that we recommend this report, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prothero. So the 3 recommendations have been moved. And it's very important to share the information that is here, but also, number 3, that we as individuals consider the support that we need to be able to carry out our roles as councillors. Where the Councillor Prothero has moved the motion, does anyone wish to second it? Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. And so this will be put forward for the councillors and to the town and community council as well. Thank you very much. If we then continue on to the next report, which is the annual reports for members and personal development reviews. Would James please like to present on this?
Thank you, Chair. Again, going to largely look to take the paper as read, but by means of an introduction. So both the members' annual report and the personal development reviews are both, just to emphasise, they are both key elements of the statutory and non-statutory guidance for local councils in terms of member development, but they are also completely voluntary. So it's very much at an individual member's discretion as to how they choose to engage within the process. I thought both of these items here today is very much like the committee to promote them as they are potential functions, to raise awareness of their work as individual members, and also to reflect upon areas where they feel they would like to individually develop in the future. In terms of the annual reports, members will be aware that communications has already been sent out to members surrounding these, and we have had less than a handful completed today, which are all published on the individual members' web pages or in the council's website. And in terms of the annual report, it covers key activity during the year, any member development, and their future aspirations. And in terms of the PDRs, forgive me for the abbreviation, that's personal development reviews. Again, completely voluntary. So it's a minor revision to the previous template, building on the recently updated research from the University of Birmingham surrounding the 21st century elected member. So looking for the committee to approve this revised template. So we'll be looking to undertake this process during the summer with elected members, very much to reflect upon actually where do they see the individual strengths and weaknesses, and how can we support that in terms of member training, and also incorporate that into the wider member development programme, which has recently been adopted by the committee. So again, looking for members today to really agree that these tools are sufficient to allow members to undertake both their annual reporting and PDR processes. And again, looking for the committee to endorse that all members are communicated to surrounding the importance of these processes and consider participating accordingly. Diolch yn fawr, Chair.
Thank you very much, James. And so there are two parts to the report. One is regarding the annual reports, which to all intents and purposes just draw attention to this way of noting activities of councillors during the year in a less political way, and which is promoted on the website. I'm trying to do this myself annually because it helps to remind me from year to year what activities I have undertaken in my role as a councillor. But of course, this is voluntary, and so it's up to councillors to complete the annual review or not. In terms of the personal development reviews, if I remember correctly, James, these are compulsory for councillors who receive a higher rate of pay, which of course includes members of cabinet, the chairs of scrutiny committees, and also leaders of parties. But it is voluntary, so non-compulsory, to other councillors. Can you confirm this, please, James, and explain what the process is for councillors on the backbenches? Thank you.
Diolch, Chair. Yeah, so just for clarity's sake, apologies for that. So in terms of the statutory element, there is the requirement for anyone in receipt of a paid salary. So as Councillor Johnson outlined, that would be the executive functions, so our cabinet members, group leaders, and also some of the committee chairs to receive them, alongside group leaders. Whereas for members, for want of a better expression, without a formal further paid role, they are on a voluntary basis. So for clarity, executive and higher paid positions they are required to undertake them and will be undertaking them accordingly with the appropriate individual, but then a voluntary basis for the wider members across the chamber.
Okay, diolch, James.
Thank you, James. And just to confirm, the only change in terms of the personal development reviews, the PDRs, is what is called question 14, which is based on the research that took place in Birmingham University, and that is the only change to the template. Is that true?
Yep, that's correct. Apart from that, there's been no other revisions to the template. The only new addition is question 14.
Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Okay, thank you very much, James. and so we now need to note the annual reports and the personal development reviews. Do the members of the committee have any comments to make on either of these two subjects?
Does.
Nobody is indicating that they would like to speak. So are we happy, therefore, to continue to the recommendations, which is to note the templates and to send that information out to councillors about both of these? Councillor Thomas?
To move recommendations.
Excellent. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Hanks, is that the same?
Yep. Diolch yn fawr, Cynghorydd.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Hanks. Okay, we will move on then to the Democratic Services Head's report, which once again is from James Landridge Thomas. James?
Diolch, Jay. I'm hoping members will be familiar with this item, as it is a statutory annual report that is presented to the committee on an annual basis. So it is a requirement for myself as Head of Democratic Services to share with yourself on an annual basis an overview of the work essentially of Democratic Services, and that we do have the resources in place to be able to deliver across our functions. I probably will have to start with quite a large asterisk, as all members will be aware. I have only been in post since November 2024, so writing an annual report based on only half of the year has been quite a challenge. I'd like to thank predecessors, but Karen Bowen as the interim, and also Jeff Rees in terms of their contributions in this space. So in terms of the report itself, again, look, we'll take the detail as read, but it provides an overview of the service, including its workforce. And you'll note there have been some changes throughout the year in terms of appointments, retirements, etc. And so alongside the workforce, alongside that overview of the service and the key workforce, and the workforce includes an overview of the key activities that have been undertaken by the Democratic Services team, both as their core business as usual function and additional activity, and what's been achieved across the year, and also the future plans. I will say the report will look different next year, and to be used as a tool for officers, members, and the public in hopefully explaining the work of the Democratic Services team, which is quite complex but fundamental to the work of the council. It's often potentially lost amongst the day-to-day workings of some of the wider world. So we pulled out some key elements in terms of staff structure, the multi-locations meeting policy, some key updates in terms of the Mayor's office, member development, and then also an element of some of this work the team have undertaken to support the scrutiny function and various other committees throughout the year, such as the Joint Consultative Forum, alongside some of our work with partners through elements such as independent bodies and also partnership arrangements. You'll see there's quite an exhaustive list on item 4.3 surrounding our future plans, and I'm very much looking for members to note the comments of the report today, and really would welcome any feedback, comments or suggestions from members today. So diolch yn fawr pob.
Thank you very much, James. This helps councillors and perhaps also members of the public who read this to understand exactly what the role of the head of Democratic Services is and what is contained within the responsibilities and duties of that role. Could I just ask one question before I open questions to the floor? Are you happy that you, as a department, have sufficient resources to achieve the role that you have? Do you feel comfortable that you have plenty of resources to do your work?
Thank you, Chair. I think it'd be remiss of being in the public sector, as being a public sector employee, to say I would naturally love more resources, but I think amongst the current resources that we have, I think we have more than sufficient to be able to carry out the demands of what we're looking to meet moving forward. So during the past probably 9 months, there's been some significant changes, both in terms of operational processes, driving out efficiencies, and also some elements in terms of really looking at what are we doing as a democratic function, for example, and where is our most value-added work. So I believe that's really led to the team being in a positive place and having sufficient resources in terms of people to be able to meet meet the needs of fulfilling the function. I think we're in quite a fortunate position where, in comparison to other local authorities, in terms of democratic services function, it's very robust. And we do, in terms of supporting a range of both committees and also some of the quasi-judicial kind of work as well at the same time, that we are in a good space to be able to support those elements. So at this current moment, I'd say, yes, I do have enough resources to be able to undertake the role of democratic services, but equally, if anyone wants to give me more, I'm always more than happy to take additional resource if there is any available.
Diolch yn fawr, James.
Right, thank you very much, James. Are there any comments by the members of the committee or any questions for James in his role as Head of Democratic Services?
Cynghorydd Hanks.
Councillor Hanks.
Cynghorydd Hanks.
Councillor Hanks, do you have a question?
Sorry, I forgot my red button. James, I just wanted a little bit more information about the relief chauffeur. We've got one part-time relief chauffeur. Just wondered if I could have a bit of information around that. And also multi-location meetings. Are we happy with the easy conference system that we have? Is it getting easier to work with and less problematic? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanks. So I'll come to the relief chauffeur first of all. So in terms of the relief chauffeur, so we do have one appointed that supports the mayor and the mayor in fulfilling their elected role in terms of travel. So within that one, it is very much on a relief basis. So largely encourage the mayor where possible to utilise public transport and other means of getting there, but appreciate there are some occasions where if they don't have access to transport for whatever reason, that the chauffeur is available for it. But members will note in the budget papers that were presented to council in April that we are looking to reduce this function moving forwards to almost modernise and try and ensure that we're using the most effective means possible, essentially, and really gaining in that the mayor travelling within the county. So as much as possible, they are encouraged to utilise other means, but the chauffeur element is very much around travel to events where unfortunately they don't know no other means of that. The mayor being able to represent the council within its duties. In terms of the multi-location meetings policy and asking, are we happy with the easy conference system? I think it's important to reflect that council's gone on a significant journey in this space. I think speaking with peers, I think we generally are in a very healthy space in comparison to lots of other local authorities within Wales in terms of its functionality and also its stability. However, we'll probably caveat with it that element in terms of, I think it will need to be as naturally in line with for example, when we're reviewing the effectiveness of scrutiny and looking at the overall effectiveness of meeting arrangements, there's now to be an overlapping question for me in terms of actually are our ways of working in terms of that easy conference system, for example, also enabling that to take place as effectively as it could. So whilst we are happy with this, the system and working with the supplier currently in terms of actually understanding what's their development pipeline looking like in terms of increased functionality in the future. I think there will be a need to review it. I'm not able to commit timescales at this point, but we would need to work that one through. But I think there's an element of needing to review it to make sure that we're still using what's essentially market best technology, and that it's still delivering what we need to as a council in terms of ways of working, resources, etc. But I think it's probably important to recognise that I think the significant journey that in this space the council has gone on, it feels, even in my short tenure within the post, that it has become quite embedded in terms of ways of working, and the number of queries, bugs, etc. has reduced over time as members and officers are gaining increased familiarity with the technology.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Okay. Diolch, James.
Thank you, James, and thank you, Councillor Hanks. Are there any further comments?
Nag oes.
It appears not. And so the recommendation today is for us to note the report. Thank you very much to James for presenting. Obviously, as he said, he joined the department halfway through the year. And so next year's report will be, of course, a new undertaking for him. And so I'm very happy for us to move on, therefore, or for somebody to recommend the recommendation.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, Councillors Prothero and Thomas. So that has been seconded as well. Fantastic. In that case, we will move on to the last item of substance this afternoon, which is the Democratic Service Committee's Forward Work Programme, which once again, I take it, is in the capable hands of James as Head of Democratic Services. James?
Diolch again, Sharon. Thank you, members. So I'll keep this one brief as it's largely very self-explanatory. It's very much just to present the committee with a copy of its forward work programme that has become a standardised item within the agenda itself. There's probably two elements to note from it in terms of it's categorised as probably a few elements. No, actually, it's categorised as previously in terms of cyclical, etc. So in terms of elements, you'll note there isn't a copy of the WLGA notes from the Head of Democratic Services meeting, as unfortunately there's probably little that already hasn't been circulated to members by other forums, so it felt not beneficial at this juncture to share it as another committee paper for members. And just to note that in terms of the annual report you get surrounding remuneration, that's reflected in the name change for the changing of duties from the ILPW to the DBCC moving forward. So it's just to really reflect those elements. But apart from that, it's hopefully a fairly self-explanatory approach.
Okay, diolch.
Okay, thank you very much, James. And so in the next meeting in November, we will be discussing the recommendations by the Democratic Commission and the areas of Wales that has taken over from the previous panel. And so we will see how they deal with some of the difficult matters to do with finance, democracy and councillors. James, can you explain to us what exactly is the Democratic Services report in this current times?
Oh, sorry, Chair. I'm not sure if it was misheard on the translation then. Would you be able to repeat that question for me, please? So in terms of 21st century democratic services, I think we're looking to really start sharing, looking to share some of the innovations that we've been developing as a service to be able to support both members and officers in really innovating in the democratic services space, which traditionally has a history of being quite bureaucratic. So it's looking at elements such as what are the potential opportunities of AI and wider digital platforms, etc., to really streamline and make both members and officers' life easier in terms of understanding the democratic functions and also sharing the roadmap for development, essentially. So just to really share that with members in terms of the democratic function, because it would inevitably have an impact upon the resources of the service area.
Great.
Great, thank you very much for that, James. Does anybody else have any further comments about the report and for the items which are to come within the year?
Nag oes.
No, in that case, I move that we accept this report. Anyone willing to second? Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. And so there's nothing else in terms of urgent items under parts 1 or 2. And so thank you very much to you all for your attendance in this meeting this afternoon. And I shall see you in the next meeting of this committee in November. And so thank you very much to you all.